In the last video, I omitted some, unintentionally omitted some interesting data, which I want to bring up now. The biggest the biggest, I should say, I did fumbled my words there. The smallest majority in this general election apparently was for Barry North, where the Conservative candidate James Daly defeated his Labour rival James Frith. The others came distant, third and fourth, and so on, by just 105 votes. So Daly got 21,660, Frith got 21,555. Very close. That's the closest in this election. So it's a Tory gain from Labour. But it's an example of how close some of these seats were. Barry North, I understand, is a marginal. But there you go. That's incredible. So I imagine Labour's going to be fighting very hard for that in the next general election. I want to talk about an election that is sometimes forgotten today, but is very significant. It's the 1931 general election. We hear a lot about the 1945 election, the 1979 election, and the 1997 election. But the 1931 election is very significant in that it was the last general election in which a single party, the Conservatives, got such a sweeping mandate, over 400 seats in the House of Commons, that hasn't been beaten since. And this was in the context of the Great Depression. The country was in the midst of the Great Depression. There was a national government, which was actually headed at that time by James Ramsay MacDonald. So although Ramsay MacDonald was the Prime Minister, it was the Conservatives under Stanley Baldwin that had by far the best electoral success. Even the great David Lloyd George, standing as an independent Liberal, got a pretty weak showing, just 4 seats, which is incredible considering that Lloyd George is one of our greatest statesmen. So I'll just read out the paragraph from the introduction paragraph from Wikipedia. This is the 1931 election. It was also the last election not to be held on a Thursday. The 27th of October 1931, it saw a landslide election victory for the national government, which had been formed 2 months previously after the collapse of the second Labour government under Ramsay MacDonald. Collectively, the parties forming the national government won 67% of the votes and 554 seats out of 615. The bulk of the national government support came from the Conservative Party, and the Conservatives won 470 seats. The Labour Party suffered its greatest defeat, losing 4 out of 5 seats compared with the previous election. So for this reason, to this day, Ramsay MacDonald is a very controversial figure within the Labour Party. Although he was Labour's first Prime Minister, many deem him to be a traitor for this reason. The Liberal Party, split into 3 factions, continued to shrink, and the National Liberal faction never reunited. Ivor Bulmer-Thomas said the results were the most astonishing in the history of the British party system. It is the most recent election where one party, the Conservatives, received an absolute majority of the votes cast in the last UK general election not to take place on a Thursday, and would be the last until 1997, in which the party won over 400 seats in House of Commons. So yes, 1997, Labour got over 400 seats. But that really is astonishing. Bearing in mind this was at the height of the Great Depression. It's worth noting in this 2019 general election, if you actually add the popular votes for Labour and the popular votes for the Liberal Democrats, they marginally surpass the Conservatives' tally, only slightly, but very, very close. Okay, so the results actually were the Conservatives under Stanley Baldwin got 470 seats, 11,377,000 and 22 votes. Labour under Arthur Henderson got just 52 seats, down by 235. The popular vote was 6,339,306. The Liberal Nationals under John Simon got 35 seats and 705 votes. The Liberals under Herbert Samuel, remember the Liberals have broken into three factions, got just 33 seats, 1,346,371 votes. Again, that's an example where you see the Liberal Nationals there got more seats but less votes. It's one of these oddities of our system. Ramsay MacDonald, National Labour, bear in mind his National Labour faction got just 13 seats, 316,741 votes, yet he was the Prime Minister heading this national government. And David Lloyd George of the Independent Liberals got just 106,106 votes. So a very unusual election. But I think the fact that it was in the height of the Great Depression, I should say Joseph Devlin, representing the Irish nationalists, got just two seats, 72,530 votes. So that really was a resounding victory for the Conservatives that year. Um, and yeah, I'll put a link to the article. Very unusual election. Of course, the other coalition government we had, Nick Clegg and David Cameron, the Lib Dems were badly burned by that. So Britain is not a country that sits comfortably with coalitions because the junior partner always suffered. The Labour Party suffered after that, of course, in the 1935 election when they had their worst performance. And this result, 2019, is the worst since then. So it's a noble election. I'll put a link to the article.